So, hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining me this evening. My name's Tina, founder and CEO of Less Leg More Heart, a charity that helps amputees. You can get more information at our website, www.lesslegmoreheart.com. We have this beautiful space called Heart to Heart, where we always try to collaborate with health and wellness experts to bring them to our amputee family and to their support systems to help offload some of the lack of knowledge that might be out there, lack of tools, lack of resources that surround all of the facets of health that aren't just physical and medical as we tend to think, but psychological and spiritual and energetically. And so keeping with that topic, we have a recurring guest that we're really lucky to share time with again. Linda is an incredible resource and the founder and CEO of her own company, Linda Downey Coaching, that's a functional health-based transformational coaching company, empowering people to live committed, joyful lives that are free of stress and overwhelm and fear, all things that of course lead to chronic health issues and block joy. So tonight's topic is your past creating your future? How stuck emotions and energy keep you stuck in life? I'm so excited to learn from you, Linda, and I'm so grateful that you're here to educate us both here in person and also when we upload onto our social media channels and YouTube.
Thank you, Tina. I chuckled because I was like, wow, that's a mouthful. But thank you. Thank you. And I guess, that really reflects my journey, how I got here to be doing this kind of work, because I had a lot of struggles in my life. I had stuff in my past from my childhood and how I grew up, and things like I grew up in an alcoholic household. My mother died when I was 4. So I had, different things. And then I had health issues. And so in my journey, I really went all out on figuring out what was up with my health. And at some point in my 40s, I realized the impact of stress and the emotions, the emotions of sadness, the emotions of anger that I'd had since childhood. So as I learned that, I really saw how that was blocking me from my full health and wellness, and with the clients that I worked. So I worked with people who had chronic health issues, autoimmune conditions, et cetera. And people would get only so far, but they would be blocked. And it always came back to the stress that we keep in our body, and very much correlated with the emotions. So I don't know if that resonates with anybody here in this group, but yeah, I'd love to share what I know about that, at least a bit, and then really ask you if you see how that pertains to your life. So I'm going to share my screen. If I can. I love when technology works out. Yes. Can you see this? Okay. So this is from this particular scale, although there's plenty of versions of this, but this particular one is from David Hawkins, who was a very well-known psychologist. He has several books. I have them over there. Letting Go is a great one. Letting go of what's got you trapped in upsetting emotions. But this scale talks about, can you see, is this big enough? Do you want me to make it bigger? It's big enough. Talks about over here, certain emotions, or it's really a level of consciousness that we live in. So it's not like somebody's experiencing fear every moment of the day, but the consciousness that they live in, the way they see their life is fearful. Okay. So these are the levels of consciousness. And this number here relates to the frequency of those emotions, or that level of consciousness. And over here on the right is really their worldview, how they see the world. But what I want to start talking about first really is these numbers, or are these numbers. So the frequency, what I'm talking about, all of the universe and our bodies and everything, even the table that my computer's on, everything has energy moving through it, even when it feels like solid matter, right? And Einstein really taught us that. And the energy moves through at a certain frequency, which means a speed. And they measure that by the number of peaks or waves in a second. So when energy is moving really fast, it's lighter, it's Well, these emotions are at the higher numbers. When energy is moving really slow and it's heavy and slow and dense, these emotions are down at those numbers. So this number represents the number of waves in 1 second, the frequency. Now, before we dive into the chart a little bit, the first thing to think of is even a dead body decomposing requires energy to decompose. So even after death, there's energy present. The energy to decompose a dead body is right around 20, which means that a person who's holding shame in their body is living at an energetic frequency not much higher than a decomposing body, right? Like their experience of their life is heavy enough that you could say they're like a walking dead, right? They're like walking around with that level of heaviness in their body and emotionally. So it's in your body, it's actually in your cells. And these emotions can get trapped in your body. So far, because I tend to just like go on and on and on. Any questions about that? Like the frequency, what does that mean? You guys get that? Have you ever heard of that before? Is this new? No.
Never explained in that way exactly, and something that's always been sort of a little ambiguous or not taught to me directly, but I've heard a lot about it. I've heard about, the acts of saging and all of these different pathways that are supposed to help with frequency related issues. But I'm excited to see things like this in a scale I've never seen it in this way.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm glad that this is helpful. I like David Hawkins. He really, like, his books are not easy to read and they're thick. They're very, like, he was from England and, he's was a psychologist. So, it takes something to get through them. Not really something, but he really explains it. And this chart I think is very helpful. There are other charts you could Google, levels of consciousness or emotional frequency chart. You can find a million of them, and some of them have other components to them. But let's oh, somebody's in the waiting room. I guess I'm the host now, huh? Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I can let him in on the back end for you, Linda.
Okay, it just popped up. I was like, oh. So something happens to us. Let's just say for me, my mother died when I was 4 years old. So that might be emotions of grief, obviously, maybe fear as a child, having that experience. And these are heavy emotions. And emotions want to move. Emotions are energy in motion. That's what they are, energy in motion. And the energy of it is the different frequencies depending on what the emotion is. So it wants to move. We know from high school that energy never stops, it changes form and it keeps moving. Kind of like, I picture it like a brook or a river, right? The water just keeps going. If it comes up against a rock, it goes, oh, there's the rock, and it goes the other way. Energy, the same thing. It wants to move through our body, but some of these slower, heavier, denser ones can get stuck. The energy can get stuck, especially when we don't want to feel them. Number one. So like, anger. I think a lot in our culture, maybe as women in particular, we shove down anger, right? I don't want to really like, no, I'm fine. Or sadness. I'm fine. Nope. Let me wipe away the tears. Let me white knuckle through it. Let me buck it up. All of that. And so that contributes when we don't allow it to move through. Toddlers are great because they don't know any better, and you just see them. They can drop on the floor, kick and scream, and stand up and start playing again, right? They let the emotion move through and they're through it. But it can get stuck. So like for myself, I had definitely grief in my body. I had anger about feeling abandoned, all of that stuff. But I didn't know that. I'm going through school and middle school and high school, and I didn't know that those things were staying in my body, and then they disrupt how your body can function, because the body is made to function with certain frequencies, the organs and the cells. And so these stuck emotions will disrupt that, and that's how it contributes to health issues. I don't know if are any of you watching the Game of Thrones prequel, House of Dragon? Yeah. So from my perspective with this conversation, the king's illness, which we've seen since the first episode, right? His illness, and it just kept getting worse and worse, was really like an expression of the pain in his heart about the family and how they fight with each other and all of that. They don't go into that obviously on the TV show, but I was like watching it and I'm like, that's how. And did you watch the last episode? Because I won't say anything. Okay, never mind. I won't say anything. But that's how his body was expressing how sad he was about the state of affairs from this perspective. Like that's how I was seeing it. So it can show up in your body. It can also show up in your life because it keeps you in a place of stress, really. If you have frequencies of guilt or shame, and do you guys know the difference between guilt and shame? Because I didn't for a while. Jill, you do. So shame is really about who you are, like who you be, the beingness of you. Like you feel shameful, like I am. So the phrase would be, I am unlovable. I am disgusting. I am. It's about who you are. Guilt is more about something you've done. I feel guilty that I didn't blah, blah, blah. I feel guilty that I said that or whatever, right? So one is about your actual being, the other is what you've done. And so when people have shame about who they actually are, that's why it's the lowest one, because their soul, and there is a spiritual connection to this, I'll go into it in a little bit, but their soul is feeling that. Their soul knows they're perfect and came from divine and from God, and yet they've decided who they are is something not other than that. And so there's this disconnect from their soul and from their spirit. Does that make sense? So when we carry shame about ourselves, about anything, it really impacts all parts of our life, our physical health, the way we move through our life on a daily basis, and then actually our spirituality and our connection to heart. When we move up here, you can see the frequencies. So here at the top, as I said, on the right, this is their view of life. So somebody who's living in shame, their view of life is miserable. This is not fun. As we move up, and you pass a certain line. Once you pass a 200, you're now more into like neutral territory. So you might feel more optimistic, more hopeful. But as you get up here into these higher numbers, like love is 500, I would say people like Jesus, Gandhi, Buddha, they were able to really live a lot of their life up in this higher frequency. And when we get our emotions, and they move through our body, and we have different energy centers in our body. We can talk about that too. When we're stuck in survival, like when we're stuck in, this is really hard, I'm working hard, I'm worried all the time, just survival, our energy is pulled down in our body low, and it's pulled into the lower 3 energy centers. We have 7 in our body, and then above us, because there's energy, there's like an energy field around us too. As we can raise our vibration and raise our emotions, get rid of those upsetting emotions, the energy moves up in our body, our frequency moves up, our view of life changes. The consciousness that we spend most of our day in is in joy. Like joy to me is really an expression of love. When you're feeling love, you're joyful. But as you get into these higher levels, now you can connect with God in a way that doesn't just feel conceptual. It actually is possible because your energy that's in your body is much closer to the energy of the divine. The energy of the heaviness of survival, that's very much more the energy of human beingness, right? Like life here on earth, hard, stressful, heavy. But those lighter frequencies, and that's when people really have a feeling all the time in their body and in their life, that everything's fine, no matter what's happening. So that's the trick, right? Is to get yourself to be there even when things are happening. So what do you folks think about that? I'm not going to say ladies because I'm guessing it's not necessarily all ladies, right, in your group. Any,
Yeah, Mr. Clemane is here, so we've got a gentleman representing the other side too.
oh, great. So I'm glad I didn't say ladies. So what do you folks think about that? Can you like think of anything in your life? Does this like connect with your experience of your life?
I guess I can kind of throw some stuff in here. I like seeing the numbers that you put down. A lot of this does make sense to me in the fact that, you're growing up, you have, abusive parents, alcoholism, and you kind of carry that. There's a shame of who you are. So that's why I was able to tell the difference between the guilt and the shame, and being able to overcome this. I personally saw a holistic doctor for many, many years, as well as emotional therapists. And I kind of got to deal with the different levels of the emotions, like you said. So it's kind of, I'm agreeing with the difficult part I find is, even if this whole list that we have here, we still have a tendency to jump down to the heavier things, like the anger, the grief, that pops into us quite often, at least me. Certain things about my life that I miss, and certain things that still hurt me, even though, you think you deal with it. But if I say to myself, if I'm in a weak moment, emotionally raw, those still have a tendency to jump at me. And I'm trying to learn how to put that in perspective and understand I'm emotionally raw today. So the fear or the grief or the despair is going to jump at me because I'm not strong. Like you said, you bury a lot of stuff. It's just that, how do we be able to take that emotion that is starting to come to the surface and deal with it?
Sure, it's a great question.
Yeah.
So when I was with you with your group last time, we talked a lot about the stories and the meanings that we create. I don't know if you saw that conversation. So whenever our feelings are going in a particular direction, that's our body telling us, hey, pay attention. And what I do when I work with my clients is ask yourself in that moment, what was I just thinking? Because your feelings are a response to something that you said to yourself. And 9 times out of 10, no, 10 times out of 10, it's the story that you have. So you feel fear, you're feeling, or anger. Anger was the one you used, right? So let's say anger. So you all of a sudden you're like feeling angry, like, why is it this way? Why did this happen? Something just happened and you went back to your story. Maybe you went to get up and you couldn't go as fast as you usually would, and couldn't grab the phone, or I don't know what it was. But if you stop and you say, what did I just say to myself? I just said, I can't do this. Life isn't the way it's supposed to be. That's your story about what happened, that it isn't supposed to be this way, that it should be another way. Whatever it is, your story creates how you feel. So when you can stop and say, what was I just saying to myself? Oh, I went back into that story that I don't want to make up words for you. I'll say something about myself. So when my different health issue, but I had 4 autoimmune conditions at one time that I was dealing with, and really impacted my day and my wellness and my health and all of that. And I would feel really pissed off or sad. Like I used to be a triathlete, and now I can't even hold my head up past 10:30 in the morning. In the morning, not at night. Forget night. So what did I just say to myself? I just said, my life is never going to be as great as it was. That's something that was one of my stories that I had attached to the situation that I found myself in. But that was just a story. Life could totally be as great as it ever was, and maybe even better if I can let go of my story So notice your emotions, and so one thing is, yeah, I'm having a weak day today, or I'm feeling a little raw, but I think you'll get more power, Jill, if you start to ask yourself some really good questions. What am I making this mean about myself? Is it really true that my life won't ever be as good? Is it really true that I'm less than because I'm in this situation now? Oh, maybe it's not true. How could I make a different story? Maybe I'm actually so much more powerful than I would have been if I weren't in this situation. So I don't know if you folks know, but I have a daughter who passed away in 2019, and she was 15 years old, and she had catastrophic health issues. And some of the work that I did for myself, with myself around that, was, what were the amazing things that I got from being her mother? What were the amazing things that I got from being the mother of a catastrophically ill child? What was the amazing, great thing that I got by attending my child's memorial service? And usually when I say that, people are like what? But if I can take a step back, my typical story would be, this shouldn't have happened. Why was this my child? What, all that stuff. But if I can say, hold on, that's my story. And there's a lot of spiritual component to this. Like when I work with clients, we go into the spirituality of, the lessons that we're here to get on this life. So that may or may not resonate with you. But just without doing that, like when I went to my daughter's memorial, there were 400 people there. And this was a special needs kid who never spoke. She never got language. She was on a feeding tube in a wheelchair her whole life. We live in New Jersey, and her hospital was Columbia. I look out in this sea of faces, and I see 3 of her kidney doctors who came out from New York, right? Like, that's an amazing thing. People stood up and spoke about her and how inspiring she was. And I thought, number one, how many parents get to see their child impact the world like that by the time they're 15 years old? Like, I got an amazingly huge gift. So I'm just saying, I created a new story around it. That's all I did.
So this is not funny, haha, but that was my sister. And everything you said is true.
Yeah.
You look at, there was 1,000 people at her funeral. She never could speak. She never could walk. She never,
But her gift to the world,
Yeah.
what God's plan was for her was to impact, and clearly she did, because 1,000 people showed up. So who am I to say it should be something different? It is what it is.
Right.
So I can choose my story. But now when I choose a story, I can get myself out of these emotions. And we're human beings, we're going to feel these emotions, but I don't want to stay there.
Yeah.
I don't want it to sit in my body and create another health condition 3 years from now because I
Right.
have anger in my body. And I don't want to experience my life through that lens either. So the thing for me, and it's been pretty successful with the folks that I work with as well, is, okay, got it. Let me feel this emotion. Let it move through, and let me work on my stories so that I'm creating a life that I want. And I just want to tell you, I see there's a chat here. I mean, did somebody say something? Oh, okay. Tina did. I'm like, oh, should I answer this? The thing about emotions is, you just never know. And sometimes it's not even like I'm thinking something that's making me feel. Sometimes the emotion is there and it's been released. So I'm going to give you an example of that. This past weekend, I was watching a movie. I put on a movie while I'm like puttering around the house. And usually it's like a thriller or something. And there's a scene in the movie where there's a car accident, and this little girl, she's about 8 years old, in the back seat of the car, she gets impaled with something. And she's conscious and awake, and the ambulance driver goes in, and she's, in the car crouching in. She says her name, and she says, "Hold my hand, honey, we're going to get you out." and the little girl starts to cry, but she's being really brave. And I was like doing dishes and folding laundry, but when I see the scene, all of a sudden I start to like I can't even get my breath. I'm crying so hard. Like both my dogs that are thankfully asleep right now come running up to me, like, and it was a little girl being brave in a traumatic situation, but the emotion was still in my body. And I'm sure there still is more, right? There'll be something else that triggers it. I wasn't thinking sad. In fact, I didn't even feel sad when I saw the girl because they didn't look alike. She wasn't sick. She wasn't in a hospital. She was just a normal little girl, but she was a little girl crying, trying to be brave in the face of something terrible. And I saw my daughter do that 1,000 times in her 15 years. So, boom, cried my heart out for 3 minutes. 3 minutes. And then I was like, whew, okay, I don't know where that came from. All right, I think the dryer just buzzed. Let me go get that load. Like it just needed to move. It's still in me. There's places, you know? So sometimes it's that, and like just let the emotion move through, or what am I really thinking? But either way, I don't want to stay there. I don't. So these higher levels, and does anybody else want to share anything about how this resonates for them?
I was pausing intentionally. I have a few just thoughts, and both of you guys, and it just chills. It's just Jill has a very, very busy real estate business and has been unable to attend several meetings, and literally was hounding. Like I came to my phone, I had a phone break because I was doing housework, and I came back to my phone and I had like emails from her and several texts like, I need to come to this meeting. I need to get me the Zoom link. And that was just profound because, not often are your doors being banged down in that way, but like something I think was calling you, Jill, to be here. And then that connection, like that, what are the chances of that? I'm just blown away. Like it's just wild. Right place, right time. But some thoughts that I had, and they're not all necessarily together, but they're all related to this topic. And I want to kind of allow you to respond or the group to each piece because fragmented a little. But when you're around people that are in the red zones that are below what's shown here, and I've seen several times in not just clinical practice, but in personal life, that when someone is in a relationship or in close proximity on a frequent basis to a person in those red bars, the shame and the anger and the things that typically we classify as like, toxic or dysfunctional or pathologic people, I've seen so many times as a majority that the person that's around them the most becomes lower on the scale that you're showing. And I was wondering if you knew, or if there's any more information about like that kind of energetic clinging or down bringing, or if that's something you've heard of, or if there's relevance to that.
Absolutely. It totally happens. Energy moves. We share our energy with each other. So our own energy field actually extends outside our body, quite a bit. And even, if you're in a room with a bunch of people and somebody walks in, you can feel their energy sometimes, like somebody who's got a lot of sex appeal, right? It's like you feel it when they walk in the room or whatever, even somebody who's upset, even if they don't say anything, you're like, whoof. We definitely connect with each other through our energy fields. And in fact, from a spiritual level, we all come from the one energy field. You could call it God, you could call it the universe, whatever you're comfortable with, but we all come from that intelligent energy source, which is pure love, and then we come in as human beings, and now we're experiencing a lot of other things besides love, but we're all attached to that. And we connect to each other. So our energy does translate. I am a heart math practitioner. Have you ever heard of heart math? Heart math is an institute in California that's been like for the last 60 years studying and researching how stress and emotions affect health and mental, issues, physical issues, etc. And then helps. So I've learned how to help people change their nervous system. But what heart math says is that we can totally change the world by practicing our own energy field and trying to share and with intention. So it works the opposite way too. You can try to intend to help bring somebody else up. But if you're around somebody and they're bringing you down, you need to do, like you mentioned before, the sage for the room. You need to clear your energy when you leave them. And some people will, if they know like that's their job and they're there every day, will even do some prayer and just some things to protect their own energy field if they can. But definitely clear it when they leave. And, you know, that's things like, there's several ways to raise your frequency. Music can raise your frequency. There's actual frequency vibrations. Have you heard of solfeggio frequencies? Let me bring that up. Can I, hold on, I'm going to stop sharing and bring that up, but I can keep talking while I do that, I think. So there's sound frequencies, because the sound is a great way to break up energy frequencies. Let's hold on, solfeggio frequencies. And so music, you can use music, and specific music will really help to bring up your frequency. You can also—
Sounds Italian, Jill.
What's that?
I told Jill's a thorough Italian, so I said it sounds Italian.
It does sound it. Well, he was a monk 500-600 years ago. They found papers from him, but the monks chant and they use the different things, sound. It's all to change the frequency and the vibration in the air, and then it moves through our body.
You know, it's so profound that you're saying this right now, because someone just told me that in a local town, there's this auditory, acoustic, egg-like sonic place. I'm not doing it justice, but it's a place of essentially auditory frequency that people buy sessions to go into for the purpose of feeling better. So this
Yes.
must be similar to what you're mentioning.
Exactly what it is. Yeah. Because these frequencies, so this was his name, solfeggio. And this is an article. You know what? I'll put this in the chat. So if you guys want to copy and paste, this is just one. There's plenty of articles, but this is just one that I like to reference. This talks about the frequencies. You know, we don't see them, but it's like in your living room right now, if you have the radio there, the radio's off. You don't see any radio waves, but if you go over and turn the knob on, all of a sudden music's going to come on. Those frequencies, the radio frequencies, are there. Now, if you turn your radio on to country, right, the station that's country, that's a certain frequency. You're not going to hear classic rock or opera. You've got to change the tuner. The same thing, all of these frequencies, we don't see them, but we're exposed to them. They're moving through us. And you want to change the tuner. You want to change the tuner of the downer person that you were around all day, right? That was the tuner. So sound is one easy way. So this is like the number on the chart. This is the number of the sound. It's measured in hertz, which is, sound is a little bit different than the other kind of number, but it's the same thing. It's measuring the energy. So this number can relieve pain and stress. This number can help heal your body. This number can help with, can you guys see this? I'm assuming you can, yeah? Like with guilt and fear. Same thing, 417 is like, this says undoing situations. I've used it before, 417 in particular, to heal negative beliefs about yourself or about the world. This is love. 528 is love. So there's 9 different frequencies, right? And you can see as they go up in number, these are much more spiritual. Like the lower, heavier ones are like pain, stress, you know, guilt, fear, healing. But now we're up here and it's like creating relationships, awakening your intuition, because you're not stuck down there. Now you're at higher places and you want to connect, or you're able to connect more to the spiritual aspect of ourselves. So this is the article that I'll put in the chat, but sound, but it's not only this kind of sound, it's also your favorite music. I created a soundtrack. I call it my soundtrack of awesome. It's got like my junior prom song on it. It's got like this, like Jackson Brown. My girlfriends and I used to leave during study hall and go get milkshakes and fries and play Jackson Brown. Do you guys even know who Jackson Brown is? Am I dating myself?
I
So
don't, but
I knew you wouldn't. I knew it. I'm like,
and
I'm
you know
saying
what? Selfishly, I feel really good about that for a second. But you carry the wisdom, Linda.
We're gonna have to introduce you to him. It's really good music.
This is like 1982. And so anyway, but so I put those songs
Right.
there because when I play them, I'm back in that feeling of when my life was happy and fun, you know, like something that I remember. So your own music can raise your frequency. Connecting outside with the earth can raise your frequency. What else does? Just changing your physiology, right? If we're like sitting all day and we're schlumpy, that's the physiology of a sad person. Even if you're like not sad, but you haven't gotten up and moved, stand up, open up your shoulders, change your physiology, and you start to feel like that body looks. So there's different things that you can do. You can also, with magnets, move energy. Magnets have like you know, a very strong pull, and they will bond and help move the energy out. I wanted to talk a minute though, and unless we're not ready to go on, about the energy centers in the body a little bit. But are there any yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm always gonna, I have so many things, because this is fascinating. So when Jill mentioned grief, right? And that was one of the listed states of consciousness on Darwin's scale there. But there's also the grief cycle. And I thought it would be really interesting, and I'm going to definitely do this after, is to sort of like cross compare the grief cycle to the states of consciousness, because I mean, are they related? I understand that one is sort of more linear and then the other one's more circular. So do they go together, or are they sort of different?
I don't know that they go together. I think that what he's saying is when you're in grief, you're here. The goal is to move up. You may not go to love from grief, but you may go from grief to acceptance, or from grief. So you'll move up. And in fact, when people are really stuck, that's sort of like, let's just focus on today, just moving up like one notch. Just have a couple of thoughts that make you feel a little bit better than you were feeling. So it's kind of like that. The grief cycle is circular, but what just occurred to me is, what determines how long it takes somebody to go through that cycle? Sure, it might take somebody months, but it also might take somebody 2 days. I don't know, right? Everybody's different, but if you can understand, and I think it really depends also on where you're at where your spirituality is. Because if you can create a story, like me creating a story about my daughter's memorial service, I've had other women contact me on social media who are like, oh my God, you're so amazing. I lost a daughter too. And I'll say, I'm sorry, when was that? And they're like, 22 years ago. Like they're still in the grief about it. So sometimes we create an identity that's very much wrapped around our story and how we feel. We can create an identity, or the feelings become very addictive, and I shouldn't even say or, and, because the feelings, any emotion changes our biochemistry. You know, if you have a thought about something and all of a sudden you feel love, oxytocin is released. You have a thought about something and now you're fearful, cortisol is released because you got to run or fight. That changes the whole biochemistry of your body. So just like a drug, I hope that's a good analogy, certain feelings, if you're used to being in that biochemistry, you're addicted to it. So now tomorrow, if I've been for the last 3 years in fear, and tomorrow I start to coax myself out of it, pretty quickly my body's going to say, what are you doing? We're used to the fear soup. We live in fear soup. We don't live in love soup. Go back to fear soup. You know, like it's just how you feel. So yeah, Tina, go ahead.
Figured that was less intrusive. So it's so great, because that was a perfect segue. One of my notes, I see a lot of folks and mentor a lot of folks that seem to be in these chronic states of chaos and these chronic states of just drama. And they believe, and it would appear that it's unprovoked and it's just a bad set of unfortunate circumstances, and it's always wrong place, wrong time, and it's just that, and it's this and it's that and it's whatever. But in that drama triangle, right? Like the actual drama triangle, rescuer, helper, or sorry, rescuer, victim, and persecutor, people just are bouncing around this thing. And when I was thinking about frequencies, it sparked an idea that I noticed, there's this entertainment level in drama. And there, as you mentioned with neurotransmitters, there's like a reward system sometimes when people can achieve some of the higher order energies, as you mentioned, that some of the ones they can attain to be able to get those hits of dopamine or whatever else is governing that feeling is to fall into the things like anger with a frequency of 150, or courage at 200, or craving of 125, fear of 100. Like they can get to those mid ranges, but it's by those negative, heavy, toxic types of emotions. So for those that are unable or unwilling to feel love or to feel reason or neutrality, some of those higher frequencies that you mentioned, that seems to be like the next step. And so the question that I had was, do you see that in patterns with people either that you've worked with or in the community? And is there a way, as you mentioned, like you can fill yourself up and improve your frequency or clear it? Or is there like a shield? Is there like a Captain America energy shield?
Well, here's the thing. So this may be really different than what you've heard. Have you ever heard of quantum physics?
Mhm.
Do you understand what it is?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Quantum physics. So traditional science has taught us that our three-dimensional world, our senses give us information, and that's all that's true, is what our senses can see, or if we can replicate something in science, like replicate it and do it over. And that everything is cause and effect in this three-dimensional taste, touch, feel, smell type of world. See. But quantum physics says something very different. Quantum physics says the energy field that we are connected to creates the reality that we're living in. And it creates it by the thoughts and feelings. So we have thoughts and feelings that send out a certain energy frequency, and the field, the universe. So it's different than religion, because religion, it's like God versus people, and God is good or God is judging, whatever. This is like, whether it's God or the field, it's just it's an intelligence, and it all works on energy. And your thoughts and feelings signify a certain energy. And the field says, oh, okay, that's what you're saying. Okay, here you go. Oh, okay. So if your thoughts and feelings, like when you're in first grade and you make up a story about yourself, nobody ever likes me. So now you have thoughts and feelings over and over. Nobody ever likes me. You go middle school, nobody likes me. High school, you're in your 20s. Those thoughts and feelings send out an energetic frequency, and the field says, okay, got it. Here you go. Here's circumstances that fit that. And it actually creates our three-dimensional body and the circumstances of our life. And we don't know that that's happening, but it's like my mother had an autoimmune condition and died when I was 4. Yes, there is probably a genetic component, but it's also my thoughts and feelings of, I'm going to get an autoimmune condition. And so the field said, got it, I heard you. Here's the three-dimensional expression of that's quantum physics. So when you can understand that, you can actually use your thoughts and feelings to create a completely different set of circumstances, including in your physical body. So it's kind of like big to wrap your brain around if you've never heard that before. So, Jill, you have your hand up? It's so funny to me. I'm like,
I know, how did we get rid of the hand? Lower it. Okay. It's all technology. One of the things, Tina, and I don't know, because I heard your question that you were asking. I think people, and I used to be this way myself, we get raised a certain way, we're negative about everything, things go wrong. That's what we know. That's how our body knows how to deal. So the fear of it changing sometimes can overpower some people, that they won't make that change to not be in the lower numbers like we were on the chart, because we know it. It's like the abused woman that keeps going after the same type of man. It's what her subconscious knows. I'm not the doctor here, but this is just what I've learned. This is what we know, and that's what we get attracted to, because our body knows that. So I've tried to learn through myself, when I'm not feeling good, stupid, all that stuff that I was told, I kind of put that shield up into myself and say, none of that's true. Because if I feel it, it's going to happen. You know what I mean? It's like, it's the weirdest thing. So I've learned with people that are constantly in that bad place, no matter what you say to them, no matter how you try to help them, they just won't move from that. I step back and go, that's because their body is used to that life. Nothing I say or do is going to make them change until they go, I don't want to live this way anymore. Something's not right. So personally, I put that perspective in when I'm dealing with those type of people. I was that type of person. So, you know what I mean? So we're able to that's just my opinion on talking about what you were, because you and I have a lot of people in our lives, Tina, that are that way, and trying to help them move to the next level. It's difficult. It's very difficult. Does that make any sense?
totally,
Yes,
you're
it does.
exactly right. Yeah. And and so like how you said, they'll keep finding things,
Mhm.
but that's the energy.
Yep.
The energy attracts like to like. Like if I'm listening to country and I'm driving around my neighborhood with country music blaring, or anger blaring, right? But my car is blaring country and I got my windows down, everybody in my neighborhood who loves country is going to come to the front door. Where's that coming from? I love that song. Everybody who loves opera is going to close their windows,
Hmm.
right? So I'm only going to attract other country music lovers,
Right.
and then I'm going to have them in my life. It's the same thing. So if I'm in the energetic frequency of anger, I'm going to like find another relationship, and he's going to keep me angry, or he's angry too. But it's like it's an attraction. Like the energy draws itself to it. So people are creating it.
There is one more question I have then too, is certain people like myself, I tend to attract people that they're in chaos, that they need the additional love. They cling to me. It's almost like, oh, Jill will be there for us. And how do you separate yourself? Because I love doing it. Don't misunderstand me. I love taking care of people, making them feel better, doing all that stuff. But why are they attracted to people like myself, like Tina? You know what I mean? What brings them to us?
Well, you
Is it
take
the
care of them.
safety?
Well, you take care of them. So sometimes, if you can say, am I really taking care of them, or am I helping them stay stuck? Right. So it feels really good. You're getting something out of giving it to, helping them. But in the long term, are you helping them, or are you allowing them to stay stuck? So, can I separate myself from the feel goodness that I get out of being the savior? I have a lot of people who reach out to me too. And well, a client that just enrolled with me like a week or 10 days ago, and really, really stuck, 60 years of upset and whatever. And right away, as we started to work together, she was in that place. She was like angry with me, and she wanted me to do this and that. And I said, no, this is how I do it. And I said, let's actually talk about why you're so upset, because that's why you hired me. And
Mhm.
now it's showing up here, right? Like that's how you live your life. And so my point is, I'm not going to get down in the ditch with you. Mm-mm. I'll reach my hand down. If you're telling me I want out of this ditch, I will help you. I will give you all I've got, both hands, and I'll brace myself and I'll pull you up. But I'm not going to climb down in the ditch with
Yeah.
you and help you stay victimy and stay in that ditch.
Mhm.
So that, like, and sometimes it's really letting go of, but I know I could help this person, or it
Mhm.
feels so good when I do, you know, I don't know if that makes a
It
difference. But
does.
yeah,
No, it makes sense. Makes sense.
Tina?
Yeah, I think
Tina?
there's, yeah, I think there's something aside from just, like the rescuer piece of it, which can be healthy when, as you mentioned, Linda, there's boundaries in place for protection.
Mhm.
But I think there's also, and you may know more about this, there's like a magnetic pull toward people that are strong and
Mhm.
positive and perseverant and kind and
Mhm.
loving and honest and genuine. And throughout the, 30, or I'd say 25 years of my adult life, I've seen this show up personally. And I've also been the magnetee um, to others when I'm needing that recharge. It's almost like a battery that's drained, and you need this cord, and there's
Mhm.
this positive, vibrant, luminous human that you know of, and being around them makes you feel better. And that could
Mhm.
speak to some of those energetic pieces, I think, Linda, that you're maybe
Right.
mentioning, is you're needing a boost, and maybe you're not in a place where your stories are aligning with getting to that frequency. And so you're seeking it out. And maybe there's some of that, Jill, happening. I'm not sure.
I think I agree with you with that, Tina, the way you just put it, 100%, because one of the things that I'm told in a lot of situations is that you're always so up, you're always so positive, you're always so, and it's work to keep yourself in that, but people do become attracted to that energy because they want to feel the energy. The problem is they're there and sometimes they draw it and they don't feel the energy. And you're right, being able to recognize that. And with you, Tina, as you know, when I went through this and started my journey, it was immediate. I was attracted to Tina for emotions, for her life, the way she is, because I needed that in my life. So you're right. You have that part. It's I love you too, sweetheart. But that made me realize I'm gonna be okay. And Tina and I feed off each other very well, which is good. And having that positive energy around people, I think, is one of the best energies that can be out there in the world. I really do. But just recognizing your boundaries is, I think, very important.
There was this really good, like powerful, I don't know if you call it a meme, because it was kind of like a mini video, but it was like drawn, imagine like stick figures, but block letters. So like
Yep.
block
Yep.
stick figures. And it's a black outline of a person with a white inside, and they're
Mhm.
walking along, and there's a person filled with black instead, which is anger, grief, sadness, sorrow, whatever. And that person is the empath, that person is the fixer, the healer, the joy. And that person, the white filled black lined person, touches the person filled with black, and that person's black goes away, but it fills up a portion of the person that's the
Mhm.
healer. And then it's basically a sequence of that until the person that's the healer is filled with black, and then sort of just like sinks down to the ground. But it was really powerful for me years ago, because not fixing was a real big issue and theme in my life. And
Mhm.
these now that I'm understanding a little bit more about the energetic things, it makes a lot of sense with the folks that have either come toward me or that have made me feel like anxious in a space,
Mhm.
or feel like I have to fix, because I, as an empath, feeling that energy, can't do anything else but try to lift it, and wasn't realizing that innately doing that for myself was going to share enough, and that creating those boundaries to not absorb that darkness was going
Mhm.
to be a lot more healthy in the long run. And I think that that's where some of my health concerns came in over the last few years, autoimmune stuff, speaking to your stuff, Linda, like stuff that was just so random because I'm trying to do it all, fix it all, and at the detriment because I was that person taking the black on. And so through boundaries, it's been really helpful. But this energetic piece, I'm really excited to dig in on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
I would love to just quickly, if we still have a couple more minutes, to just go through the energy centers of the body real quick, because I think
Mhm.
that could be helpful. So there's 7, as I said. The
Yep.
bottom one is at the very, like the base of your tailbone, right? That's the root energy center. And that, so each energy center has its own hormones, its own neurons, its own kind of like its own little mini brain, like its own little neuroreceptors, chemicals, hormones, all of that. So the root one is reproduction, right? That center is in charge of reproduction. That is, and that's where we're rooted down into our human beingness. And when we feel like we're, ready to reproduce with someone, and that center is balanced and has good energy, we feel good and we create life, right? If we create life and that's going well, then the energy moves up into the next center, which is below the belly button. That's digestion, everything down in that area. So I'm saying what it is in the body, because if you have issues with digestion, if you have issues with reproduction, if you have issues as I go through each one, a place that you want to spend some time is balancing the energy there, because if the energy is not balanced, none of the organs and the tissues in that physical body can do their job well. So if you look at, okay, once I am with someone and we create a child together, now what do I need to do is I need to feed them, like now we have community. So the energy moves up because now that's the next step. The third step, or the third center, is just below your rib cage, above your belly button. And that's the solar plexus. And that energy is where the adrenals are and the kidneys, but fight or flight, right? What that energy would do in your life, or that center would do, is, okay, we've created a life, we're feeding it. Now we want to stake our claim in the world. Like, this is my house. It's sort of like your competitiveness. It's your, speaking out who you are. So if that center is out of balance, people are either overly aggressive and angry, or they don't speak up, right? They're not sure of themselves. Either way, I didn't really give either way for the other two, but if you're out of balance in the root chakra, you have to go. Thanks, Beth. Thank you for coming. If you're out of balance in the root energy center, you might be oversexed, meaning looking for sex to feel better about yourself, or you might be shut down and not, open to having sex. Second center, digestive issues, constipated, right? It's so there's ways that it shows up in our body and ways that it shows up in our life. So then the third center, so those bottom 3 are all about survival. When people are stressed and worried and upset, their energy stays in those bottom 3, because when you're stressed and upset, the only important things are to eat, stay alive, and keep the species going. There's no energy for anything else. But if it's balanced and you're not living in stress and upset, then the energy can move up. The 4th center is your heart, which is called the seat of the soul. That's where we create from. That's where we connect with love. And actually the heart math, a lot of their research shows that the heart gives the brain much more information than the brain gives the heart, which surprised me. I thought the brain was like, command central. The heart, the feelings tell the brain, and then the brain carries out the instructions. But the energy of the heart, so if you're not bringing your energy up to your heart, if you're stuck in survival, you're not feeling love, you're not being creative, right? So if you are reproducing, everybody's being fed, you live in a community, you feel good. Now you're like, okay, I feel really happy. I feel connected to love. The next one is your throat. Now I want to share that with people. I want to speak out about how happy I am when you're balanced, like when it's working the way it's supposed to. So that's your thyroid, that's your all the issues of your throat, your breathing. If that's balanced, then the next place it goes up into is the center of the brain, the pineal gland, and that's the tuner, like the radio tuner for country. I was going to say for cowboys. That tunes up to the energy of the universe, of God. So if we're stuck in survival, we're never really connecting with God. We're not connected or present to divine. We're just really out of balance and everything is pulled down and heavy. So I just wanted to sort of like wrap that up with that picture quickly. I hope that was helpful.
I feel so ignorant, and I say the word ignorant all the time because I'm trying to decouple it with the negative connotation it comes along with. It's just lacking in knowledge, right? So as a clinician, and like, so Tina BA before amputation, and then Tina after amputation, like two very, very different experiences of life, and one very clinical, and one very scientific, and one very somewhat ignorant. And then Tina after amputation, that realized that the knowledge base that I had wasn't adequate to get myself to a place of health and wellness and happiness. And that was really shocking to me after going to college for 8 years, literally studying medicine and wellness. So I'm just really excited to learn more about this. Some of the people that I respect the most that are like such academics are, and who I personally go to for my healthcare, is someone of the holistic mindset, someone that is knowledgeable about these kinds of things. And it's I'm still trying to like pull out, if I'm transparent, the tabooness from the Western medicine training and from the way that people traditionally would view this information. And it's all from a place of, again, ignorance, because there's so many books and there's so much information. My sister is like so down the rabbit hole in metaphysics, and she'll talk, I mean, I can't even keep up with the things. And I've gotten some books that are sitting on a dusty shelf because you need time to read books.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that you were able to bring some of these pieces of information to share, and that we can share on our platforms, because I really think that unless something happens in your life, and that, or people come into your life at a place where you're ready to receive an alternate way of thinking than what we're traditionally fed, you may not be open to it. And there's a ton of missed opportunity in that for healing and for wellness.
Yeah.
So if this is a place that anyone sees now, and they're interested any further, I would encourage them to look at, your website, and to look up Linda Downey coaching, and just dig in, because I anecdotally know how powerful some of these changes are, and just exploring all of the other details. So thank you for bringing your time and your knowledge to the group, because I think we're going to get a lot of interest in this segment for sure.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I hope there's a lot of interest. I want to give you two resources. So have you ever heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza?
Yes, Kelly Calabrese, one of my mentors, and the person that connected me with you, she was the one that put him on my radar years ago, and I am obsessed.
Yes.
Who is it? Can you say it again?
Dr. Joe Dispenza. I just went to his retreat in June. People heal. There was a man there who had ALS, end stage ALS. His limbs, he was in his 40s. He first went to Dr. Joe's events 3 years ago. He now walks. He's not in a wheelchair. This was end stage ALS. Because, and they do, so at the retreat that I was at in June, they take data. They take blood sample, saliva, swab your skin, swab the inside of your mouth, and EEGs if you are really sick like that. And they track you for a year, and they teach you how to do the healing meditations to change the biochemistry of your body. So that's what he does. And he's University of California, San Diego is the research lab that works with him, and he collaborates with HeartMath as well. But they're tracking data. People who were in end stage cancers, all kinds of cancers, brain, everything, healing. The other resource I want to share with you is Healing Codes, Dr. Alexander Lloyd, LLOYD, Healing Codes. I'm also a healing coach, because these were the things that I found made so much more of a difference than changing my diet and doing a detox or anything else. Same thing. It says the same thing as Dr. Joe. His tools and Dr. Joe's are slightly different, but they say the same thing. When you change how you think and you feel, and you change that biochemistry, that flood of hormones and chemicals that is in your body, you can heal that. All disease, also the biology of belief, is something Dr. Bruce Lipton, you may be interested in. All disease, dis-ease, is just the body's,
Oh, I Wade.
hey baby, the body's reflection of being out of ease, and out of ease from not being connected to love, not moving the energy up. So that's what they teach you to do. So yeah.
Linda, too, if I'm going to throw a name out at you. There's some of the healing process that I've gone through. I remember the emotional massage therapist I was talking about. It's Mark Labonte.
Okay.
He's out of Greenland, New Hampshire. It's called Wellness, Health and Wellness. And he did a lot of energy work on me, which shocked me, to be honest with you, because I didn't realize how it was. You know, just from a touch of the arm, these emotions came pouring out of my body. If you want to kind of look into him and see, you know, I think with the knowledge of both of you, I mean, I haven't been there in a couple of years, he's probably going to be mad at me, but I think you'll find what he does too is very exciting.
He did, you know, do muscle testing to.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, he does everything. He does the massage to the, you know, he got me in touch with the inner child that I didn't know was there. That was a session that was almost 3 hours between the two of us, but it was phenomenal. It was amazing. So it's talking about all the energies and the chakras. And if you read up on him, I think you'll be pretty impressed at what he does.
Thank you. That's a lot of the work that I do. I do 3 hours forgiveness healing with a client one-on-one. We do work, all of that. So thank you for your time. It's been just a pleasure. All of you are so.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, thank you so much. My lease is being yanked. My son's back in, and
I get it.
Thank you all for being here, Linda.
Thank you.
I can't wait to have you back on if we're honored, if we get the honor.
I'd love to. Yeah,
right.
let's talk.
Until next time, best foot forward, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Best foot forward.
Yeah, mine's still under the table.